Hey, I'm Grant, and welcome to Stay the Channel for September 17th. So, main thing I want to talk about is I tried a couple new things with the podcast this week because Ellie, my sister, was in town, so I wanted to use that to kind of get ahead because there's a limited window and I'd like to have her on too. So, I ended up filming one on Saturday, and I tried a new style. I'm going to try the editing to be a little bit different to see if I can hopefully drastically cut down that time it takes to actually edit the podcast. And if that works out like I'm hoping, the podcast should, in theory, become significantly easier. Significantly. So, because mainly it's just going to move to a style, I think of it more of like a broadcast style, where you're doing, if you were like actually had like a camera crew working it kind of thing, instead of me doing it all in post. So the main thing is I'm going to go hopefully for one central main wide shot, and that's the basis of what the podcast is. And then I'll still hopefully, if it works out, do the individual person shots. So if I need to like zoom in on someone, I can, so I can still do edits that might be necessary to like cut something, or just because like simple stuff like behind the scenes, like sometimes I'll like forget something during the podcast, and I'll just, when someone else is like telling a story, I'll get up and go do something, come back down. Well, if it's in a wide shot, that's super distracting, so I still need to be able to cut. But the idea is, do that, that's the basis. There's one good wide shot, and then if I need to, I can cut to a person, but I always have to go wide person one, wide, and then person two. I can't go 1 to 2. Because if that works, then when I go through and edit it, I don't need to make a second pass through the content to see if all the cuts look good. Because when you cut from, say, a wide shot of someone to like an actual close-up one, there's still like that context in your mind. But when you cut from like person 1 to person 2, if it's delayed, so the other person's talking like off screen for a second, it's just confusing. Also, simple things like if I do an accidental cut, it's not a big deal to accidentally cut into a personal shot or out, because I can just leave it. It's not a big deal. Like other times though, if I cut from person 1 to person 2, back to person 1 a second later, I need to fix that. That's something I can't just leave. And it adds time. I'm hoping with this and a big effort to make sure I really understand everything in my setup and all my equipment, I'm hoping to get to the point where I could do the podcast in a day. And that's my goal. I don't know if it's ideal yet, because it's not a big deal, but like the main hurdle I have though is it takes time to just like convert the files and stuff like that. And that might just be something I can't really get over, but that doesn't really matter. Because from my standpoint, as long as I have the thing filmed, I just wanted to get the overall work time down. If I have to do half of it one day and half of the other, it's still the same. But I like the idea of getting it done like in one day, or even just 2 days. Because right now it's like an entire week. I sit down, plan, take the thumbnails, do all this stuff. I do like one pass one day. I should say like I record Monday, first pass Tuesday. Wednesday's kind of like a little edit day because I have like other stuff I do. And then Thursday it's like a final pass. And that again, it takes like the majority of my night to do that. And then it goes out on Friday, right? So I'm hoping it'll instead just become film it Monday, because that seems to be when it always happens, because I'm always like, podcast needs to come out on Friday, I haven't filmed it. We want to do it Monday after work? I'm hoping. Come back, setup's not a big deal, set it up, record for like an hour. I immediately get it on my PC and start converting. And then hopefully if I fix this issue so I don't need to convert twice, then I can just sit down and I have like an actual thing I can export by like maybe 11 p.m. That would be just amazing. Because not only does that mean it takes less time, but that means I can get ahead. It's like not a big deal to take on more work. Like I want to get ahead, but I always had to get ahead in units of episodes. Like I would never want to record 2 to 3 episodes of the podcast having not edited the first one, because that seems like that would just be too much. So, but now I think I could do that and it won't be as big of a deal. And then to kind of bring us all back around, one of the main things I did with this is I finally sat down and I got a good camcorder. It's a Canon. It's what I'm recording this on right now. And that's what I figured. I got one with certain specifications to it that I wanted something that was semi-professional. It wasn't this obvious personal camcorder someone gets to like just photograph their kids or something. Like that's what these old ones basically are. Like I think I told this in the podcast. They have like a baby mode, which is like a motion detector, so you can like point at your baby, and anytime they do something, it'll like record it. Don't need that. Kind of useless feature. But it just had this idea of, well, I can't really set anything or learn how stuff works because it's all auto. It's all meant for someone who's not experienced. Whereas with this camera, it's a lot more of, intentionally so, a pain. It's like, okay, what exact frame rate do I want to record at? That's a pain to like figure out. But in doing so, that's a project. That's something I can solve. I can sit down and be like, here are my options. What is each one? Why is each one a thing? And what is the best one for me? Like before, like there's a lot of stuff like frame rate that I didn't really have mastery of. I'll say that. It was just like my project is set in Lightworks to be whatever the default is. I don't actually know off the top of my head. It's this. And my sources are just whatever the cameras are. Whereas now I want to say like, no, I realize I'm going to export at 30 FPS. That's my thing. And then I'm going to make all my stuff be that. It might not be it, I'm going to have to work that out. But I have mastery, I have control, I understand what it is, and I'm doing it deliberately. And that's what this camera is I'm hoping is going to push me towards. Like, I'm doing this for this purpose, and I understand why and how and what. So that's going to be a whole thing. And it's not just the camera work, it's also internally, like in my editor, making sure I'm using all the tools I can to make it flow very well. Having a good workflow. I have right now a big issue with the workflow that I have to convert the files twice, because that's, so far, as it sounds dumb, you think you could convert just from A to B instead of A, B to C. But for some reason, that's the only workflow I've known so far where I can take anything from any of the sources I create, no matter what, and it works. So far. So I'm trying to sit down and I'm going to figure out why that's true, and if I even still need to do that. Because I think that came about because also when I wasn't as good at doing this stuff. Like, even just like this idea of sitting down and like converting that started from when I got my Elgato for the first time, and I had to learn about like what a variable frame rate is. And I didn't really know what it was or how to deal with it, but I knew this thing kind of fixed it. Well, now that I think I'm just better at this overall, I may not have that issue anymore, because I can just fix the source of the problem. I can control stuff like this has to be this frame rate. I can do that like through OBS and stuff. And then maybe I don't have to do that conversion because I fixed the source problem. I don't need the Band-Aid anymore. So that's exciting. That's going to be a lot of work, but I'm hoping to have that free up a bunch of time while still doing all the stuff I want to do, so that I can do more of the stuff I want to do. Like I'm enjoying going through that Ruby on Rails tutorial, but more than anything, I felt that I was fighting with the podcast making stuff, because every other week I had to do that for my extracurricular activity, the stuff I do like after work. So I wanted to be like, oh, I just want to get this book and get done, but I always had to look ahead. Whereas in theory now, the podcast should just be a straight through thing. I sit down, record it, edit it, done. And then I should be better at it now. I can understand that, and I'm hoping with this camera to use it to do some more interesting things, some more actual good videos. I feel like that's what I would kind of describe. Like, I go back to this comment a lot. Someone made on Reddit where it's like, you gotta make really, really shitty content before you can make bad content. You gotta make bad content before you can make watchable content. And you have to make watchable content before you make anything good. And I felt like the podcast was the first thing that was like really solid. I don't want to say it's even at the point where it's good yet, but it was watchable. That's where I felt that level was. And I want to make that jump where it goes from watchable to good, where it starts having its own momentum. Just like something like, oh, this is actually good. It's still, I feel like what it's going to end up being, it's still not going to be something like anyone in particular will like go out of their way to watch, even people who necessarily know me. But I want it to become the kind of thing, and make sure it's on the level that if it's on, I don't turn it off. That kind of thing. And have the feeling about it. I think it's moving that way, and I just in all honesty, I want to have it be more produced. Stuff like we are going to talk about this. These are the things we talk about on this podcast. It is about this. Because I think right now, one of the things I'm really noticing is just like, it's a little niche, even between episodes. So it's, if I have like certain people on and we talk heavily about gaming, I know that's way harder for my parents to watch or something. But then if it's the other way around, like say we talk a lot about more of our lives, then it's like very niche to like living in Omaha and working on this. Like I talked to Ellie about coding. That's something where it's good if you know about coding or can relate to that. But I think if you don't, then there's this entire episode that's just like, I don't care. And I don't necessarily know how to do that or how to fix it, but I think there are ways. And you can look back and see that there was stuff like that for, I want to say, episodes 24, I think, and 25, where I was like, let's start with almost a gimmick. It's like, this is the thing to get us started on the right direction. It's like just nostalgia foods. That's the kind of thing I feel like basically anyone can relate to. It's a thing. Easy. And just starting on that, it sends the conversation towards things that are relevant to that and are helpful. So we don't necessarily start off on, oh, hey, this one big conversation about a movie we all saw but isn't really relevant unless you saw the movie. That whole thing. And that's kind of hoping what I'm going to do this month. The final thing is I took some time off this week. I want to do, I don't know what to call it. I want to do a big Dead Rising stream. Basically all weekend. It's something I had this idea for, and I was not thinking it was going to happen, but I really want it to. Basically, I just want to do a weekend where I'm just going to go on my stream, maybe like 9 to 5, from Friday to Sunday or something. Maybe Thursday to Sunday, if I work that out. And all I do is I just play through every single Dead Rising game I can get my hands on in order. And I have most of them except for like the really obscure iOS ones, right? But I even had Chop 2 Drop, which is like the weird one. And the idea is like Dead Rising 1 takes place, I think, on September 19th. I looked it up, and just with my schedule, it wasn't really feasible to start it on a Wednesday. But I like the idea of like, let's do it on the anniversary of when the game takes place and just play through them all. I just figured like that was a fun thing, and I'd like for it to grow. And the downside though is it was like, well, if I don't do it now, I have to wait a year. I don't have to because it's all, I'm making this thing up, but I want to do this. I feel like, again, it's like, it's a different kind of thing that I want to do in the future. It's more of like an event. And even though I don't have anything in the background for that so far, or I can't even do all the things I want, I feel like it's important to do the thing, even though it could be bigger. Like, I really wanted to have sat down and like dedicated time to it and like had all these things. Like I thought like, wouldn't it be cool if I could literally keep that stream going literally for 72 hours? Like, no, that'd be perfect because it's like 72 hour mode in Dead Rising. And all it would be is just like, okay, I do it live 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or something. And then I just build up a backlog of something that will play while I go to bed. And like, so I say let's 9 to 9 is live, and then 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. is like, oh, here's me doing like Let's Play or something. Or here's me doing some like live action, like a little skit about it. Something to just like to fill it. And I feel like that would be, or would have been awesome. And maybe next year, maybe things will work out. But they didn't. And that's unfortunate, but I feel like it's still important to go and do something. Like worst case scenario, I can just sit down on Saturday, like say if I didn't get the time off, or I just really don't have, I have other things I have to go do, I can just, pretty sure I can always just sit down and I'm just going to play everyone in order, I'm just going to turn the stream on. That's like the one thing I know I can do, and I'll definitely do for sure, I think. I can, what a great phrase. I will definitely do that for sure, I think. So that should hopefully be going, and as part of that, what I think, one of the reasons I want to do it is I have to make all of this surrounding artwork, planning, logistics. Like, it's really tiny. Like, it makes it sound like I do this big thing, but it's just so something like simple as, oh, I want to do each one game. I'd like to have art that's like relevant to each game for my stream. It's like I just have to sit down and do that. That's probably not going to take that long. I'll probably take an hour or two to just do it in my photo editor and kind of feel it out. I have to like go get all my other consoles out because I'll need to run it on Xbox One, 360, and the Wii. Just got to make sure all those work. I got to learn how to tab between stuff in OBS and Studio, and I have to do all that before. It's like I have to sit down, I have to make a plan, and then I have to execute the plan. That's the skill I really want to get at, more than just like playing Dead Rising. And I think that's why I want to do it. I definitely have a history of like, projects I do on the channel are to teach myself certain skills, and that's how I would say I structure a lot of the plans I've made and the things I've done over the whole course of this channel. And I feel like this is another one I feel like I want to execute because I want to have that skill. So, kind of a long state of the channel. Hopefully things should be going pretty well for this week. If that podcast thing pays off, that would be a huge boom for me, because it's like I really don't want to move it to be a monthly thing because I don't think it needs to be. And in the past, doing this little thing for, like I said, where I do a project like this, like I'm going to spend a week improving the podcast workflow, has really paid off, because ultimately, if this does work, it will make everything go so much faster. Like if I understand what audio, video codecs and formats and frame rates and stuff like that I need to export in, and the settings I need in my editor to make that workflow easy, every single video I do is going to go faster and be better. And I think that's going to be a big deal. Like I do feel like this is like in a way, so I think this is like the 3rd year I've been doing this almost. I don't know the exact anniversary. I think September 1st is the actual like, sometime between late August and early September is like when I first like either created my account or uploaded a video for the first time. And it just feels like this is the point where like I want to make more of an executed decision, and I have high hopes for the channel. I'm just like doing this stuff, and I can talk about that forever. But anyway, I'm Grant. You can contact me over on my Twitter. It's at taken the number 4 Grant D, or my email. It's grant at taken4grantd.com. I'll be back again next week, hopefully with much smarter and much more well learned.